What's going on, everyone? I'm Jaren, and today we are talking about Totally Killer. Here we follow the story of the infamous Sweet 16 killer who returns 35 years after his first killing spree. Now, 17-year-old Jamie accidentally travels back in time to 1987, determined to stop the killer before he can begin. As I mentioned in my last review, It's a Wonderful Knife. This movie was on the list in celebratory for the other classics that got a slasher spin. My closest friends, Nohea and Aaron, have definitely heavily recommended this one to me, and I just did not prioritize it. I'm not gonna lie, it's really difficult for me nowadays to really get excited and prioritize a movie that goes straight to streaming, but I finally put some time aside and finally got to check this one out, and I really dug it. Director Nanachka Khan, I really hope that I said her name right, but she is the creator of the TV show Fresh Off the Boat and Netflix's Always Be My Maybe, and she has got her hands cooking in something special when you describe your movie as Back to the Future meets Scream. We are treated with the introduction of present day Halloween, where we point out the subject of Gen Zs and their indifference when it comes to the relationship between kids and their parents. Jump back into the year of 1987, and where generations clash, you can bet that that's a recipe for chaotic humor. Getting into some of the talent here, Kiernan Shipka plays Jamie Hughes. Now, I have not seen her work in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but it's nice to know that she is no stranger to the horror genre. I still remember some of her supporting roles in movies like The Carriers and her nerving performance in The Black Coat's Daughter. And in this story, she's our Marty McFly. And one of my favorite nuances that happen in these time travel flicks is a lot of the culture shock with our protagonist. It really adds on to her performance, especially with what she knows and what the norms were back in the 80s. Olivia Hope plays the teenage counterpart to Jamie's mom, Pam Miller, and every single time that I saw young Pam come up on screen, I couldn't help but think, why do I think I know this girl from somewhere? And then suddenly it hit me. This girl used to do music, or she still does music. I heard some of her tracks back in the day. I'm not gonna lie, I really like them. But yeah, I guess she does movies now. What I love about her introduction is the subversion to Back to the Future, to where Marty McFly sees his dad for the first time in 1955 in the school hallways and is not so surprised that he is just the biggest loser on campus. And in here, Jamie's parallel image of her mom goes from goody goody control freak to Regina George from Mean Girls. She packs a lot of attitude, which is kind of a neat challenge in the plot in order to convince the school bitch, excuse my language, and steer her away from danger. I also really appreciated the side art of how we got to see Amelia, who's Jamie's best friend, repair the time machine in present day, while we have Lauren, who's Amelia's mom, the young version, attempt to create the time machine using what she's got back in 1987. Now, this has actually answered one of my biggest what ifs in Back to the Future about how time proceeds to move along and change while the narrative and the protagonists are steadfast in the past. I know, if that makes any sense, please let me know if I wasn't clear. Like Jamie says in the movie, fucking time travel. Going back to how I mentioned the culture shock between Gen Zs and the 80s, there are some really great references that clash ideals, which make up for some outstanding humor. For example, I like how Jamie references a lot of pop culture stuff to like meta horror films to time travel movies. Heck, the entire high school template was a reference to John Hughes himself. And then there's the security, sexism, racism, drugs, slang, and other inappropriate subjects that were deemed socially taboo but were very alive and well in conversation back in the 80s. Now, some of that ridiculous worked for me, and at the same time, I just felt the woke spoon getting shoved down my throat because Jamie would stop and point out the etiquette and appropriation at every turn. I did like how the film managed to appeal to its younger audience with its much more hip and fun vibe, and at the same time delivering its R-rated blood and violence when it leaned to its horror elements. For the first time that I watched it, I thought it was going to be like Happy Death Day, rated PG-13, giving us some sanitized kills, but it was kind of like Freaky, where it surprised the hell out of me, and it really goes for the kills with a much bloodier and sharper edge to it. Now, if I'm going to be honest, like all horror icons that wield knives, I just sometimes wish that the killer got more creative with his kills instead of being tied to the title of the Sweet 16 Kills. Like, who the hell is really counting? I also have to commend the script for subverting the usual time travel story structure to where our killer strikes a second time and begins changing tedious details of the past. This brings Jamie and our 80s main friend group together without a doubt, and they rally a plan to where they lure and divert the killer into one of the House of Horrors of the Halloween Carnival, and each of them have a chance to go toe to toe with our masked assailant. What was a bit of a letdown and not necessarily a negative on the movie was that I knew who the killer was the second they showed up on screen. Like, the first half of the movie, this character shows up, and I started listing my interpretations on why this person should have motive. And long and behold, I was right. They even attempted to throw out a red herring to change my answer. And if I'm gonna be honest, just like that little sub arc in Happy Death Day with that prisoner, I just didn't buy it at all. At the end of the day, I'm glad my suspicions and my guess of who it was correct. I think it made the final confrontation a lot more satisfying with its reveal. Because if I'm going to be honest, if you watch Scream and it wasn't the boyfriend, sorry if that's a spoiler for some of you who haven't seen Scream, but I think it wouldn't be as effective as it should be, especially for, their motive, their reasoning. Overall, I was pleased with this Gen Z slasher spin on the old school time travel story. They got to explore fresh ideas while honoring some of the tropes from various genres that we love. I mean, it could have been a hot mess, especially with that Johnny Bravo fuckboy Michael Myers look that the killer was trying to represent himself with, but it works. Alright guys, that's all I got to share about the movie. Go ahead and check it out. It is streaming on Prime Video. Otherwise, I'm Jaren Agbanawag. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Look forward to more reviews, and I will see you guys at the movies. Take care.